So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR's Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, David Bruno, and I'm flying solo today. Bob Bianchi's on vacation, but the show must go on. And this is a special one for me, for sure. I have Mariana Hogan is a professor Emeritus at New York Law School and a program director and a faculty member for the National Institute of Trial Advocacy. She served as a co-director of the National Trial Program, and she's regularly teaching advocacy skills at law firms, government agencies, corporations across the country. Over the course of more than 30 years at the law school, she had a variety of roles, including Dean of Professional Development, Director of Advocacy Programs and Externships, and Director of the Criminal Defense Clinic. And I'm going to right there. Because why this is so special for me is because she was my professor at New York Law School my third year, and I did that criminal law clinic. And it really was my first experience. I was in the courtroom, and what a tremendous program that was at New York Law School, because it allowed me to work alongside legal aid attorneys for the indictable or the felony cases, as well as handling my own caseload, the misdemeanor caseload. And I was in court as a law student, literally in court, midnight bails in New York City, following the tutelage of Professor and Frank Brest as well. And it really hits me because we had such a great conversation yesterday leading up to this. It is such a pleasure to have you on, Professor. And thank you for everything you've done for me, as well as all of the students who you have impacted over the years.
Well, it's really equally, if not more fun for me to be able to be on your show. And I've been following your career from afar. So it's really great to connect and be able to be interviewed by you.
So I will tell you, I am a fanatic about systems. I like the way I try my case with a trial notebook. And I paginate every single page, and I put tabs, and I have a box with folders that are. It comes from you guys. It was the first, like, I remember that specifically about getting the charges and breaking down the elements of every particular statute, and then getting the police reports and preparing the trial notebook. And all the way back, 2006 is when I was back at New York Law School. And I just want to let you know, Professor, some of the things that you taught me back in the day have relevance and impact that continues every single day here at my law firm with the 7 lawyers that we have and me individually. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, it's so great to hear that the stuff we were telling you to do has proven to be really useful and effective in your practice. That makes a professor's heart sing.
Yeah. Let's talk about the beginning of your legal career, because your experience at the Public Defender's Office, both at the Bronx as well as the Federal Public Defender's Office, really gave you a great foundation for what you continue to do. Tell me about that position, federal defender, both federal and state, and what foundation that gave you to be, who you are today.
Well, I started back in the day, and I'm not going to give a year because that would be really embarrassing, but I started back in the day in Bronx County, and it was long enough ago that it was when the Bronx was burning. And so there was a huge caseload, and from day one, I had to go into court. Oddly, I chose to be a public defender, even though I had a paralyzing fear of public speaking. So it was really stressful for me. Every day I was in court, my clients were relying on me, and I really was learning on the job. So it was incredibly stressful, but at the same time, because I had to do it, I really had to figure out how to overcome the anxiety, how to channel the adrenaline that I was feeling. and how to effectively represent my clients, even though I was really nervous the whole time. So I think the lesson that I take away from that is that the more you do something, the better you get at it. Practice does make perfect. It really, it's an old saw, but it's really true. That combined with preparation, there's really no substitute for preparation. Part of what my fear did for me was it forced me to really work hard to prepare all of my cases. And many of my colleagues thought I was over-preparing, that I was overdoing it. But it was the only way that I could overcome the nerves that I felt every day going into court, was to really prepare and practice and say things out loud. I'd be talking to myself in my office. If the first cases that I had to do as trials, I was talking to myself in the office. I was talking on the subway. I almost would cross-examine people on the subway to practice the lines of cross-examination that I wanted to do. And that was a great lesson for me, because over the course of time, the nerves started to die down a little bit. They never went away. I'm not going to say that they go away totally, but they did start to die down. And it was from just continuing to do it and practicing and preparing in advance.
Yeah, such great advice, and really universal advice, not just for lawyers, but for anybody. One of the biggest fears of the population, generally speaking, is getting up in front of a group or with all attention on you. Professor, we have canvases all over the office about pressure is privilege. And it's something that I talk about regularly as well. And I couldn't have said it better myself. It's actually something that I talk about on stage in my keynotes about the pressure. The pressure's gonna come. I mean, it's there. It's there for attorneys. It's there for doctors. It's there for construction workers. With that being said, preparation and experience are the two things. And I think that's important to bring up too, because we are in a selfie culture right now. I mean, with the social media and everybody's looking, right? Everyone's doing the scroll and they're looking at the best of everybody, in a sense that the expectation is instant gratification. The expectation is a highlight reel that people are being conditioned on right now because of the programmers that are keeping people in the feeds. And that's something to be said, because it doesn't come quick. It comes with experience. So tell me more about this, in a sense that as a professor, and you had these individuals and students coming through that wanted to be trial attorneys, what type of experience is best to get their feet underneath them and get more confidence?
Well, I think being in court a lot is important. And if you want to be a trial lawyer, it's doing it a lot is going to be helpful. But I want to go back to something you said about this, culture of perfection and instant gratification, because I think that's really something we need to think about. And the message that I like to give lawyers, and now I'm teaching more lawyers than I'm teaching students these days, because I'm going into law firms and corporations to teach lawyers these skills. Everybody wants to be perfect out of the box. Everybody wants to be able to do it and be amazing right out of the box. And I'm fond of pointing out, I've been around for long enough to have white hair, and I've been doing this for a very long time, and I have yet to ever take a perfect deposition, do a perfect trial, make a perfect closing argument. Perfection is something we all want to strive for, but I don't think we should hold ourselves to that as our standard. And I think one of the ways that you get better is not just by practicing and doing it a lot, but also by thinking about your performance and being really clear with yourself, evaluating it and thinking about, okay, I just did that. Now, how would I do it differently, or how might I approach it differently? How might I do it better next time? That's how you're going to get real improvement, is if you're always thinking about, okay, I did okay there, but how might I do it even better the next time?
Well said. I mean, I've been on TV now for over a decade. And especially even before COVID, you see the studio that we're at. We've made a lot of developments from a technological standpoint. But for a long time, I was doing my own reels and cutting video. And I was forced to watch myself and listen to myself and the words that I was using and the stutters. And literally, that's the best feedback that I could have gotten then. And it translated well into the courtroom as well, to be able to give yourself some positive or negative feedback. Let's get real with each other, right? It's not all about highlights or the culture. Also, too, Court TV is out there, all right? For any lawyers, any young people, the best experience to get is to get on your feet and do it. I'm a big proponent of raising your hand, volunteering for the hard things. If my law partner were here, who was my boss, he was the head DA and I was an assistant. He always says, I was always trying to do everything and help everybody, write briefs, do whatever, demonstrative pieces of evidence. But that is key, to put yourself out there and get the experience. But I think in the alternative too, watching it and watching others and learning from others is a good alternative, right? And I'm on the Court TV network twice a week and I'm watching too. I get value from watching attorneys cross and give openings and learning from watching too. What do you think about that, Professor?
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great way to build a repertoire of different ways of approaching things. You're going to get ideas. You know, one of the things I love about legal practice is we're not talking about plagiarism in legal practice. If you see somebody do something that is really effective in a courtroom, hey, there's no reason for you not to try the same thing, except, and I have one proviso, you got to be yourself. One of the mistakes that I made as a young attorney was watching lawyers that I admired and saying, oh, I want to be just like that person, and trying to make myself be exactly like, you know, somebody who had a really different style, really different personality. It wasn't until I figured out how to be 100% authentic that I got really effective in a courtroom. And I think that's true of all public speaking. And when I say public speaking, I mean like trying to convince somebody to hire you. That's a form of public speaking. Sure. If you're not genuinely yourself, you're not going to be as credible, you're not going to be as likable, and you're not going to be as hireable. So think about how you can take the things that you see other people do and make them your own.
Absolutely. Listen, that's the first half, Professor. We're rolling into a break, but this is Nothing But the Truth. We are on WMTR, and we will be back after the commercial break.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
And we're back on Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, Dave Bruno, flying solo today with my professor. Back in the day in New York Law School, my criminal law clinic. And if you were with me earlier, talking about just the impact it made on me and literally everyone I get to talk to, because we were talking yesterday too, and we were talking a little bit about being an attorney and the ability to make impact and serve. And literally, it's one of those things where you get to make people's lives better, because when they come to us with problems, inevitably problems. And we were talking a lot about this yesterday on the phone, but I want to talk more about that in a sense that I believe that there has to be more awareness to attorney wellness in the community because of the challenges of being a lawyer. And I boil it down to three primary factors. Number one, problems. We're dealing with the problems of our clients as well as the problems of our own, financial, familial, all kinds of social issues, whatever they are, health issues. They're going back and forth, and sometimes these lines of communication have been blurred because of the technology. Number one. Number two, adversarial process. Talked about it a little bit, going into court, talking, doing the thing, getting the experience, but it's in conflict with the adversaries. Number two. And number three, distractions. The distractions from the phones, the feeds, the vices, all these things, right? Tell me your thoughts about this, Professor, and bringing awareness. How do we continue to bring awareness that it's not all butterflies in this particular profession?
Well, with great responsibility, and it is a great responsibility to represent a client. Clients come to lawyers with, as you said, problems, and they're entrusting their lawyer to help them and use their professional training to help them. That's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure. And part of what I think happens to some attorneys is the pressure can get to them. The key is staying on top of things, maintaining balance in your own life, making sure that you're not avoiding problems, because problems that are avoided don't go away. They just get worse and more difficult to fix. So I think the most important thing for attorneys to realize is that they are taking on a big responsibility, and they owe it to their clients as well as to themselves and their families to take good care of themselves so that they can serve their clients. You have to take care of your own house first, or you're not going to be able to effectively help your clients with their problems. It is not an easy business that we are in.
It's especially not easy when you throw in the distractions. And this is universal. This is not just for lawyers. This is for everybody. You know, Silicon Valley out there in California and all the computer engineers are programming these platforms to keep the eyeballs on the feed so that the companies can advertise. That's it. That's the game. That's what they're doing. And it sometimes is conflicting with the priorities and the responsibilities that we all have. And even starting today, Professor, right, we had a little problem with the technology of Zoom. Technology is a gift and a curse, and it really is universal with this distraction issue. How do we continue to bring awareness to this? I mean, could we put it in the law schools? You were an educator for decades. They need to know this. What do we do?
I think that there are a lot of law schools that are starting to address this in the curriculum. And I've seen law firms also starting to address stress for their attorneys at the firm. There are mindfulness courses for lawyers, and they've added them to the curriculum at the law school. Very helpful. Yeah. Very, very helpful to give law students a sense of how to be mindful and how to have balance in their lives as lawyers. I also think that we individually, everybody, lawyers, non-lawyers, all of us, we've got to be aware. You said it really well. The algorithms out there are trying to hook us. They're trying to get eyeballs on screens. And so if they're effective, which they can be very effective, we have to be very mindful of that and set limits for ourselves. Make schedules, make a plan and stick with it. Don't let hours go by where you're scrolling. Make sure you say, okay, I'm going to scroll for X amount of time, and then I'm going to come back and finish this brief or focus again on this brief. We have to have strategies for dealing with the different distractions in our lives. And social media and screens are only one of them. There are lots of distractions out there.
Lots of them. We talked about authenticity before the commercial break, and I think that is another solution as well, and that is finding community to support. Okay, and I'm really focused on this now in this season of my career in my life, is to really bringing awareness to my communities. Like, for example, the New Jersey State Bar Association is a great community. And for any attorney out there, look for those types of communities, your local bar, your state bars, because you find the committees, you could find the groups, you could find the parts of these organizations with like-minded individuals that think and act, and you share ideas. You don't have to go about it alone. What do you think, Professor, about community?
I think you've hit on something really powerful. One of the ways, going back to where we started, which was starting my career in the Bronx, one of the other things that really saved me and helped me develop as a lawyer were my colleagues in that public defender office. Yeah. I found a group of colleagues of varying experience, some who had a lot of trial experience and some who were more at my level and everything in between. And we supported each other and learned from each other. And then later in my career, I got very involved in local bar associations. And as you said, there are committees on every area of the law, every topic, and you'll find like-minded people. It also helps you keep up with changes in the law when you're involved in bar associations. And I'll make a little plug for the National Institute for Trial Advocacy, NITA. They are a great community and a great place to start if you're thinking, I want to learn these trial skills, or I've been practicing a while and I think I'd like to get a brush up on my trial skills. They have public programs all over the country on all different types of trial skills, and you meet people at those programs too who become part of your network and your support system.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways post-COVID are the number of masterminds and masterclasses and coaches out there, right? You don't have to recreate everything alone. You could learn from people who have done it before. And to your point, the committees, they're out there. And also too, I think it's important to put your hand up and volunteer and take leadership positions in these particular communities too. That's one thing, again, I'm learning later in my career. I was in the trenches. I was trying the murder cases, the domestic violence cases that we're well known for here at the Bianchi Law Group. And when it all kind of settled, when COVID hit and things quieted down, I really started to community, volunteering, board of trustees, put me down, right? Secretary, vice president. There are so many different opportunities to take leadership positions in these communities for young attorneys too, to grow the community. What do you think about that, Professor?
It sounds trite for me to say this, but I think when you do that, you get more than you give. You wind up learning so much from the experience. And I would say I wish I had gotten involved in bar association work earlier in my career than I did. But I'm happy that I did do the work that I did do later in my career, because I really grew from it and I learned from it. And the other thing I really think is important to say is sometimes we don't want to volunteer for stuff. We don't want to step up and do stuff because we think, somebody else could do it better. I'm not really qualified to do it. And I just want to say don't let that hold you back. If you have good intentions and you're willing to put in work, everyone will be happy to have you involved and you will contribute. So don't let a fear that, oh, I'm not really that well qualified, don't let that hold you back. Just get in there and start doing it, and you'll be shocked at how much you get out of it and how much you can also give at the same time.
Well said. I trained with Dr. Brene Brown, author, Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly seminar. Literally, Bob and I went to San Antonio. We trained with her. And she is a big proponent on how fear holds us back from joy. Those are the things that we're scared to step forward, where on the other side of that fear is joy, is progress, improvement, all the good things that come from raising your hand.
I will say, I just was going to say that because I feared, public speaking, and even well into my career, I had such anxiety, I wouldn't volunteer to give a demonstration of a closing argument or a talk to a bar association on, cross-examination skills. And when I finally faced that fear and came forward and did it, I'm not going to say it was easy. I had to work really hard. I was really anxious. But when I did it, boy, the great feeling you have afterwards from having challenged yourself and gotten through it is so worth it. It's so worth it.
It's where improvement comes from. I mean, literally, because we talked about it at the onset of the interview about the experience that's required, right? Doing the things, getting the reps, it's the same conversation, because the hard things are the things that we typically don't go after, go through those things, right, Professor?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Bob and I have a course that we've been doing for students interested in law. Prior to COVID, it was in person, and we've since been putting together virtual workshops for students. And these are college students that are contemplating law school. What we do is various different modules. We bring in people from all different areas of law. We talk to them about things like trial advocacy and things like that. But if you could talk to the young David Bruno, the one that's still at Seton Hall University, and I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go, and I was considering New York Law School, what is the advice that you would give me?
It's so funny because I remember Dave Bruno, the law student, the third-year law student, and you were made to be in a trial courtroom. It was apparent to me at that time. And I'm guessing that Dave Bruno, the college student at Seton Hall, was also somebody who was showing signs that you were made to be in a courtroom. The advice I give everybody who's thinking about law school is, and there's so many different ways to use a legal career, not just as a trial lawyer,
right?
But anybody who's thinking about law school, do an internship. Do an internship in an area of law that you think you might be interested in, so that you can see what the day-to-day is really like. Do it in a couple of different areas before you commit to going to law school, because we both know going to law school is not a day at the beach. Yeah. It is a lot of work. It's 3 years and it's expensive. So you've got to be really committed. And we also know that the career is challenging. And for all the reasons we talked about earlier.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, opportunity cost is a simple principle of economics. When you talk about time, you're giving up 3 years at least, sometimes 4 if you're going in the evening. And then money. Really, the amount of loans with interest rates I just paid off my student loans, literally. Luckily, I've had the success I was able to do that. But I mean, that essentially was a mortgage, Professor, for all of the years. I mean, it really is an important decision And you have experience in this too. You were running the externship and internship programs. So how do they find them? Let's just say they're not at law school. They don't have your units and departments that help with placements. And what's the advice for somebody that's a college student that's interested in trying to feel this profession out?
I think that most colleges have a career office, so they can start there and see if anybody in the career office can direct them to where there are listings. The other thing you can always do is look up alums. See if you can figure out if there are local alums of your college who are now lawyers or judges, and then reach out to them. As long as you're polite when you reach out and say, I'm a college student, I'm interested in I'm thinking about law school, and I'd love an opportunity to get your advice about how to go about that. You're not asking for a job right at the outset. You're just asking for advice. I'd like to hear from you about your career. So just a coffee. Can we meet for a coffee? I'm guessing, Dave, if somebody reached out to you from Seton Hall and asked if you would have coffee with them to talk about your career as a lawyer, you'd do it in a heartbeat. Yeah. And I think most people would. So I think that's another way to go about it. And again, the career office, I think, is a good starting place. They can help you maybe find the alums who are in the legal field that you're interested in.
And that is great advice. Before you write the check or commit to 3 or 4 years, make sure you want to actually be a lawyer. I will tell you, it was a great conversation we had yesterday. And on the air, nothing but the truth. Professor, it has been such a pleasure. For those that are looking for you, want to connect, want to watch the things that you're doing, or maybe we have law firm owners out there that want your consult, where do people get in touch with you?
I'm still, even in my Emeritus status, I'm still at New York Law School. And so it's Mariana, Mariana Hogan, Hogan, at nyls.edu. And I'm happy to talk to anybody. And frankly, any of those college students, I'm happy to talk about how to get a sense of really what the day-to-day of being an attorney is like.
This is Nothing But the Truth on WMTR. I'm your host, Dave Bruno. For this video, because we are taking video today, or the podcast, nothingbutthetruthpodcast.com, where you could see this interview and all the rest of our others. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. It was great seeing you.
Great to catch up.
We're the Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
In a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.